for the transitional housing, and then we had people that were moving into the homeless shelter that had like carpentry skills and stuff like that, and then we paid out an honorarium to them, you know, because that wasn't a huge portion of funding that was coming. It was just whatever the, I think the only requirement is that they have you get like two estimates, and then you pay the cheaper of the two estimates, and we just made sure that the people had the cheaper of the two estimates. So, but it got it done. It got it built. So
okay. So that would be,
it's a possibility.
So that scenario would be paying people, which that brings in the other dynamic of the income sharing, no money in the sociocracy style. Do we need to pay people money? Because if it's the obligation...
I'm saying that we can pay it back to the company. Like I was saying, if I'm doing acupuncture or medical work while I'm on the thing, that's just going to the company, or to the LLC it has, or the tribe.
Oh, I see what you're
not
saying.
To anybody
So
else. So it would just be going back to the company.
It's going back to the LLC.
Yeah, not
I
like,
see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. I see what you're saying.
Because I would be willing to volunteer to paint. I'm sure everybody would. Like if
Well,
it was
yeah,
like, hey, this is going to help out if we go paint it.
Because it's
just go paint.
But you know, that's the basis of what we're doing. I mean, we're building our own lives. We're building our own community, and this is, you know, the building an infrastructure circle here, which we haven't gotten to yet. Like these are the people that are going to be doing that. Like these are the people that are putting in the water pipes and the electric grid and putting up the houses and all that. So, to reiterate, one source of income into the 501c3, residents paying fees for their educational experience. So residents, we would have to sit down and focus directly on what this situation would look like in detail, which we haven't done. We haven't even scratched the surface on this yet. But I think it's feasible to charge a fee for this because that does give us another source of income, and we're essentially bringing people in from the greater community, and these people coming in may not be sure whether or not they want to live in this community or any community at all. They're coming in, they're going to basically pay for what it costs to feed them and give them room and board, and then we take that money and that just goes into the account for the 501c3 to help us with our operating expenses. If, you know, just to overly simplify things, if it could work out, if we map out the financial situation, it'd be pretty convenient if we could set it up so we have, like, say, 25 residents at a time, and then however many members, if we set up a balanced budget so that these fees could cover what it costs to feed, or you know, the $700 a month per member that it cost us for them, for the full members, and also for what it costs to maintain the housing and the food for the residents, then essentially we would have created a balanced budget. But the only problem I can see with that is it could be too costly for the residents. We don't want to create a super expensive educational experience. But you know, like I said, it's too soon to know even what those numbers would look like. So, does anybody have anything about the 501c3 before we move into sociocracy? Okay. So, sociocracy. I'm not an expert on sociocracies. I've done a little bit of reading here and there about it over the years, and Kat brought it up at the last meeting, and I think it sounds like an excellent idea for us to work on. We've had discussions about egalitarian models, and there has been some confusion among what egalitarianism actually is, and it's also possibly nearly impossible to have a true egalitarian society when we're trying to legally interact with the capitalist society. It just may not even be able to exist. That's not saying that we don't have to operate by egalitarian principles by any means. But the way that a sociocracy works is essentially you have different branches. It's a consensus-based decision-making platform, and it utilizes consensus-based decision-making while minimizing the likelihood of gridlock, which is one of the biggest problems with consensus-based communities, is when you're trying to get full consensus of all of your members, it's almost inevitable that every time you propose something, somebody's going to have a problem with it. Somebody's going to object to it, because in that person's individual situation, it may negatively influence that person, or it may violate one of that person's core values that they don't want to compromise on. This is supposed to be a system that makes those types of situations a little bit more workable. So essentially what you have is each individual circle takes care of different sectors of our community. So like the business and financial circle here, this is going to be the group of individuals that manage the paperwork, the financing, the taxes, everything to do with maintaining all of this. So these people, you have a selected number, you have a number of members in the circle, and within this circle and within every circle, you have a leader and you have a delegate of that circle. So in the business and financial circle, let's say they have a meeting in here in this sector, and it's something financial. It does affect the entire community, but this is our group of experts on that sector of our community. Like, people in the land and farm circle probably don't know what we're looking at for our spreadsheets and what we're looking at on our dividends from one company to the other. They don't know, and they probably don't care. That's not their level of expertise. It's not what they want to focus on. So they come to a consensus in order to make a decision here. So you get full consensus of these members right here. But that has not been implemented yet. So now, after they come to their full consensus, then the general circle, which consists of the leaders and delegates selected from each of the other circles, now you have a meeting in your general circle. So now you have one leader and one delegate from all other circles, and they come together. So the business and financial circle, they bring their topic to the table, and they say, this is what we decided within our circle, this is why, this is what was brought to the table, this was our process that we went through, and we propose this. We want to implement this new policy. We want to file for a B Corp certification, whatever it is. The general circle, you need to get full consensus of all of these people in the general circle. Well, yes, you're not getting direct consensus from these members in these parts of the circle, but the leader and the delegate represent their circles. So they work closely hand in hand with their own circle, so they're familiar. So you're essentially, in this circle, you're trusting your leader and your delegate to look out for your best interests. It's basically an efficiency thing, they're going to look out for their best interests. They work hand in hand all day, every day. You have to get full consensus of everybody, of all the leaders and the delegates within the general circle in order to implement the new whatever item that is, getting the B Corp certification. That's the formality of it. That's the very basic, crude understanding that I have as of now after some quick cramming and research. So basically, the circles that I've drawn up here, like, this is not a proposal by any means. I basically just put this together just to have something to demonstrate so that we can have this conversation and figure out if we as a group actually understand how sociocracy works before we move forward with the idea that we want to use it. But it's common, like the common house circle. That would be the circle that would be the group of individuals who manage and take care of all of the shared infrastructure buildings. So like if we have, let's say we have our common kitchen area, and we have our common meditation area, and we have our common workshop area, that's the common house is going to basically just make sure that things are cohesive and working as far as what those things are being used for. The community life circle, this is going to be like social dynamics. Like, this is where all the conflict resolution stuff is going to happen. These are going to be basically the people but keep an eye on the community as far as like how are we doing socially? Like how's everybody feeling? What's everybody's level of happiness? Are we being successful in making sure that everybody's needs are taken care of? Like, trying to diffuse whatever situations may come up or misunderstandings, keep the communication lines open. That's like the community life circle will be heading up that. Land and farm use, this is going to be all of our food producers. And there's also like, there's crossover in these too. So, like this member may be the same member here. So like, multi-talented people, we all are. So, this member down here is on the land and farm board because they love growing food, but they're also really good at figuring people out and helping people psychologically. So land and farm use circle, they're in charge of producing food and what we use our land for. They're in charge of the livestock. They're in charge of, where we put the gardens, how we do the gardens, how we organize the work parties for the gardens. Like, that's their job. So essentially, any topic coming in from any one of these circles that gets brought into the general circle, it first gets sorted out by the individual circle, but it has to be agreed upon by all the other circles through a representation process. So like land and farm use, if they want to implement something, but let's say it creates a disturbance in the building and infrastructure sector, the leader and delegate here might be like, well, no, we can't turn that into a garden because that's going to screw up our flow pattern for what we're doing here with these water irrigation pipes, or whatever, just whatever conflict it could be.